Hello there, Lunar Squadron, and welcome back to the channel as we continue along in our breakdown series. Today we are breaking down the character class of the villains. You guys heard that right. The villains, which of course include General Grievous, our favorite space general.
Hello there.
Today we are going to be breaking down this class, all of the perks that we know this class is going to have, and we are going to be pointing out some pretty cool details that we found about this class in the trailer, which weren't really explicitly mentioned. So we're actually really excited to share with you all what we've learned with this class. However, before we get into all of that, we do have a couple of announcements, don't we, Nick?
Yep, we sure do. So if you've been with us over the last few weeks, you will know that we will be doing a Q&A and giveaway once we finish this breakdown series of the character classes. Including this video, we only have 3 character classes to go, so this Q&A and giveaway is coming very soon. But if you are new to the channel, you should get involved in this Q&A, and the way to do that is 3 simple things. 1, like this video, 2, subscribe to the channel, and 3, go down below and leave a Q&A question. You do those 3 simple things, you're entered to win a mystery LEGO Star Wars set, which will be revealed at the Q&A. We are targeting this weekend to get that done, so time's running out. You better get involved quickly. Now, my other message is actually a question for our official sponsor, Bosk. Now, Bosk, this video is all about the villains, and a big recurring theme for the villains is both the Empire and the First Order, and I know you've done a lot of business with the Empire. So do you have any favorite moments of your adventures with the Empire?
I have nothing to prove to you.
Wow, thanks, Bosk. You continue to not answer my questions, and I gotta be honest with you, it's getting a little annoying, but thanks, man. Anyway, guys, let's get into this video. This is Lunar Squadron standing by. We are ready to make the jump to hyperspace.
On my mark, Lunar Squadron.
Now, before we get into all of the abilities that the villain class will have, we just wanted to let you guys know which villains were confirmed by way of the character list, which we saw and of course broke down just after it was revealed. We learned from that list that this class will contain characters such as Aplek, who is a Knight of Ren. There is the B1 Battle Droid. We suspect the B2 Battle Droid, but I just want to note that the B2 Battle Droid is listed as a common character right now. I'm not sure why that is. I mean, we have a few theories which we'll get into later, but it's listed as a common. And then there is Captain Kennedy, Captain Peavy, Captain Phasma, Cardo, who is another Knight of Ren, Commander Praji, and DJ. Now, only one of the DJ appearances. The first DJ appearance is actually a Scoundrel appearance, and then he also has a completely different character with a completely different ability set for after he kind of, sells out as he does. Now, we also know some other villain characters just by virtue of common sense, right? Like, we've seen the trailer. Nick, what are some other villains that we know are going to be in this game but weren't confirmed by way of this list?
Yeah, so there are some obvious villain characters that appear throughout the trailers, and I just kind of want to go over a few of them. Now, obviously, like you said, they were not confirmed on the character list, but they're pretty obvious, especially since some of their counterparts are already confirmed as villains, such as the First Order officers and Imperial officers. We see various different Stormtroopers throughout these trailers. I'm talking Empire and First Order. We see Jetpack troopers and Scout troopers. We see even Sith troopers. We also are pretty certain that the Geonosians will be under that villain character class. It just makes sense given the context of the films. Also, we get a look at Praetorian Guards and Imperial Royal Guards. Those are both obviously going to be villain characters. There just really isn't anything else they could possibly be. Now, the last one I do want to talk about, Andreas, and is the man of the hour himself, General Grievous. Now, on paper, on the surface level, General Grievous seems like the kind of guy that will be part of the villain character class, because he will not be part of the dark side character class because General Grievous is not force sensitive. So it makes a ton of sense for him to be a part of the villain character class. However, when you start looking at those perks for this character class, do we think it makes a ton of sense for him to be in this character class?
You know, I think it does, and the reason being is if you look at characters who similarly have, you know, melee weapons, I'm thinking about Aplek and honestly the other Knights of Ren for that matter, who are, you know, force sensitive, by the way. They just were untrained canonically, and they are not in the dark side class as well. They fall in the villain class. I think, you know, it goes without saying that General Grievous was a villain in the movies. I could see maybe an argument for common if you're uncomfortable seeing him hold a thermal detonator, which we'll get to later, but it just makes more sense to me that he will be in the villain class in this one, and that just like the other melee wielding villains, he's going to be able to use his melee weapons, which are his lightsabers. And you know what? We might be seeing General Grievous chuck a thermal detonator a few times, which, I mean, let the man have some thermal detonators. Like, it's time. It's 2022. Anybody can throw a thermal detonator, right?
I mean, that would be honestly a ton of fun, like being able to use General Grievous with his lightsabers and his animations, and then you could also throw like thermal detonators. Like, that might be like the most powerful character in this game, honestly, if he can do that. Like, that would be so much fun. That gets me really excited. Now, speaking of thermal detonators, let's talk about the perks, the upgradable perks that will be a part of the villain character class. Let's start with the very first perk, which is clearly a thermal detonator. Now, Andreas, this is clearly a thermal detonator by the icon. What do we think this perk is going to allow you to do with said thermal detonator?
I think this one is pretty straightforward. It is just going to increase the damage of thermal detonators, perhaps the radius, or even the amount of thermal detonators that you are able to throw, maybe consecutively or at the same time. So I think that is how these thermal detonators are going to be improved by this perk. And the reason why we know that this is a thermal detonator is, I mean, first of all, look at it. It's like, you can see it's a thermal detonator. It's got, like, you know, the explosive looking marks on it. But also we saw from at least one screenshot that there is a Stormtrooper holding a thermal detonator. So we know that, you know, villains such as Stormtroopers are going to be able to chuck these things. So that's what I think this one does. Nick, what do you think it does?
You know, I completely agree with you. The only thing I could maybe think of that it might do is also increase the amount of thermal detonators you're able to carry. So maybe you start off with only being able to carry one, and then you can have two, and then you can have three since there's 3 levels. So maybe something like that. But I completely agree that it's going to increase both the range, radius, and overall damage of the thermal detonators. I think that is... This one's pretty obvious. This one's pretty easy. Now, let's talk about the second perk that we see. To me, this looks like a strip of ammunition with a plus sign over it. So to me, this indicates something like an ammo boost or perhaps a cooldown to your blaster. However, there's nothing that really indicates from the gameplay, including gameplay with the HUD, that there will be a cooldown system to blasters, or that even ammunition will be something you have to be concerned about. And that's nothing I don't really remember ever having to be concerned about when it comes to LEGO Star Wars games. So what exactly do you think this one is?
You know, when I look at this one, I think maybe it will augment your lasers in some capacity. You know, maybe it'll do additional damage, or maybe it'll change, you know, the type of ammunition that you can use. Maybe there's better ammunition for long range, better ammunition. Maybe there's explosive ammunition. Or maybe this could just be like a symbol for weaponry, and it just kind of upgrades your weapons in general. Because the issue with reloading for this class is we know that certain characters, such as Aplek, only have melee weapons, right? So if they only have melee weapons, then how are their, you know, bullets going to be upgraded if they don't have any bullets to shoot? So I think this might just upgrade like damage output in general. So I think that that's also a possibility. All right, so that is 2 perks down. We now have 2 more to go. And for both of these perks, there's really one shot in this trailer, being the gameplay overview trailer, that actually gives us an idea of what these 2 perks do. Now, you can see in this shot of Darth Maul choking out a officer. I mean, you would probably be fixated on that, so you wouldn't look in the back of the frame. But if you look in the back of the frame, you can actually see what appears to be a terminal. Now, this terminal looks like it is exactly what we see with the 4th perk. It looks just like a villain terminal. You can even see on the floor in front of the terminal that there is the villain icon on the floor, indicating that this is for villain characters. So gaining access to this terminal is going to be exclusively reserved for the villain class. Now, what are some of our ideas that we have as to what upgrading this perk could do for us? Like, what are we going to get out of upgrading this, and what are we going to get out of these terminals, do you think?
You know, that is certainly a question that I think we struggled with a lot when we were doing our hero character class breakdown. And when we were doing that character class, we said that there was a terminal that we saw for the villain characters, and that's why we thought it had to do with the heroes, that they had kind of this very nice parallel system going on. Now, as far as what I think it will do, I think it will just allow you to access areas with perhaps loot that only villain characters will be able to access. Kind of similar to with the Scavenger, where we think that the Breaker Blaster will allow you to access areas that only Scavengers can to get special loot, whether that be Kyber Bricks or a ton of studs or something like that. That's kind of what I'm thinking it's going to do, and as you level it up, perhaps there are just certain terminals that you have to be at a certain level to be able to activate. You have to have a certain level of hacking ability or something like that to access it, which we see in other games. So I'm thinking something like that. We really won't know for sure until we get our hands on this game, or perhaps something they would possibly go over at the IGN FanFest next week. But I'm very confident that this 4th perk is dealing with that terminal system, like you said, especially since we see the terminal in the gameplay overview trailer with the clear Imperial symbol on the ground. To me, that just has to be it. Now, Andreas, the big one that's really gotten to us over this entire character class is that 3rd perk. What the hell am I looking at here?
So if you look kind of at a bird's eye level, it's very hard to identify what this perk is. But if you take a closer look at this one, you can actually make out that this is the exact same silhouette that is used of a Lego head throughout these perks. You see the same Lego head silhouette for the Jedi class, for the hero class, and for the dark side class. Now, clearly, this Lego head is a little bit different. It's got, the 3 dots on it, 2 on the bottom, 1 on the top, and then below it's kind of got this shadow kind of suggesting that this head is floating. Now, we had no idea what this thing was, but then we looked right next to that terminal that we were just talking about, and we were able to see just that a few of these heads on the floor next to the terminal, which appear to have the 3 dots on them. That said, these things supposedly are going to float because they have this shadow underneath them. What the hell is all of this about? Like, floating heads, Empire terminal? Like, what's going on, Nick? How can we make sense of this? Or can we make sense of this?
To me, the thing that makes the most sense here is perhaps a probe droid that you can use in some sort of support role. This one really confuses me, clearly. I think you're absolutely right. I think that is what we are looking at on the ground next to the terminal. It just looks just like it. And yes, it is in that head minifigure shape. However, it could be a probe droid just because it has like that kind of mechanical features in the icon. And my immediate thought when I first saw this perk is I thought back to those support droids that you had back in the OG Battlefront that you could kind of use, that were very small and circular shape, that would float next to you and activated it, like were used in a very support role. That's kind of what I'm thinking this might be, but to be honest with you, I'm not entirely comfortable on that conclusion. I really am interested in seeing what exactly the hell this perk does when this game comes out. This is perhaps the perk that I'm most anticipating trying to figure out what exactly I'm looking at here.
So there you have it. Let us know in the comments down below what you guys think this whole mystery of the floating heads is about. I would love to hear what you guys have to think about this one. Honestly, it was very difficult for us to come to a solid conclusion on this, so we'd love to hear your thoughts. Another thing we'd love to see in the comments down below are some Q&A questions. As you guys all know, we are still planning on doing a Q&A giveaway where one of you will win a brand new LEGO Star Wars LEGO set at that Q&A when we wrap up this breakdown series. We only have 2 characters to go, so once we are done with this series, we will be doing that Q&A, and then we will be selecting the winner. All you have to do is like this video, leave a Q&A comment down below, and subscribe to the channel to make sure that you are in the running. Other than that, thank you all so much for watching. That's going to do it for this one, and as always, we will see you all next time.